السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Brothers and sisters, I want to talk to you guys about a certain event that took place in the life of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By a show of hands, how many of you have heard about the Treaty of Hudaibiyah? So few. Right, so this event in the life of our Prophet was a pivotal event that changed the course of Islamic history. There's so many lessons that we can derive from this event. So it's very important that we understand what happened. Now we can spend days upon days upon days pondering and studying the events of the Treaty of Hudaibiyah, but we're going to try to compact it into just a few minutes, so just bear with me. 6th year after Hijrah. 6 years after the Prophet ﷺ migrated from Mecca to Medina, Medina is now majority Muslim. Mecca is now majority Mushrik, the Mushrikeen. These are the Quraysh, the enemies of Islam. 6 years after Hijrah, and the Prophet ﷺ, he has a dream. He has a dream that he's doing what? He's doing tawaf around the Kaaba. That he's leading a congregation and he's shaving his head. This is 6 years after Hijrah. And keep in mind that the dreams of our Prophet ﷺ were not just mere dreams. These were wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he receives this wahi, he gathers all of the Sahaba in Medina, the Muhajirin and the Ansar, and he tells them that we're going to leave behind all our weapons, all our armor. We're going to walk into Mecca in peace. This is 6 years after Hijrah. What has happened in the past 6 years? The Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, the Battle of Ahzab, also known as Battle of Khandaq. Time and time again, the Mushrikeen have tried to eradicate the Muslim threat. Time and time again, Allah has caused them to fail. So they're not happy. They're angry. They're looking for a chance for revenge. And now the Prophet ﷺ is telling his Sahaba that we're going to walk into Mecca without weapons in complete peace. So the Sahaba, they hear this and they're full of anxiety. They're nervous. They know that if they walk into Mecca right now, they're going to be walking into a high probability of death. So when they hear this, what do they say? What did they say to the Prophet ﷺ? They say, and look at the iman of the Sahaba. They say that if Allah and His Messenger want to make Umrah, we're going to make Umrah, let's go. This was the iman of the Sahaba. Where is our iman? So now 1400 Sahaba, 1400 Muslims accompanying the Prophet ﷺ to Mecca to do Umrah, including his wife Salima. Now a lot of events take place during this time, but we're going to skip right to the end. Basically what happens is that Quraysh in Mecca, they stop the Prophet and the Muslims from entering Mecca. So they try to attack them twice as well, and they fail. Each time Allah causes them to fail. But they stop the Muslims from entering Mecca. So the Muslims have to set up camp in Hudaibiyah. Sound familiar? Hudaibiyah? Muslims set up camp in Hudaibiyah. While they're setting up camp there, the Quraysh, they've lost so many times. Their numbers are low. Their morale is low. They've lost the support of all the surrounding tribes. They want to avoid a full-on clash with the Muslims. So what do instead? They come up with this treaty, this agreement, and they get one of their companions, Suhail ibn Amir, who is not yet a Muslim. They get Suhail to go and talk to the Prophet ﷺ to sign this treaty with them. This is the Treaty of Hudaibiyah. And what were the conditions in this treaty? What did the Quraysh want? One, they said, you can't make Umrah this year. Our Sahaba, our Muslims, and our Prophet ﷺ, they just spent weeks trekking through the desert heat to get to Mecca to make Umrah. They spent this fortune, all this time, only to be told that they can't make Umrah, they have to go back. You want to come back next year? You can come back next year. But this year, you can't make Umrah. That's number one. Number two, the Quraysh know they can't win in a fight against the Muslims. So what's condition number two? The Muslims can't fight the Quraysh for 10 years. And the Quraysh can't fight the Muslim for 10 years. This is condition number two. Condition number three, we have Muslim brothers and sisters in Mecca who are being persecuted, discriminated, tortured. And condition number three postulates, Hijrah is now banned. Those Muslims who are being tortured in Mecca, they're not allowed to make Hijrah to Medina anymore. And if they escape and they get to Medina somehow, the Muslims in Medina have to bring them back to Mecca. This was condition number 3. Okay? No matter what angle you look at this treaty, you look at it and you say this is completely unfair. This is completely for the advantage of the Quraysh, and I don't see any benefit in this for the Muslims. And the Sahaba, they see this and they think the same thing, right? They think this is ridiculous. There's no way we're going to sign this. So what does the Prophet ﷺ do? He signs it. He signs this treaty. He signs it and he agrees to every single point. And the Sahaba, they see this and they're like, Ya Rasulullah, what is this? Like, how can we go back like this? This can't possibly be the end for us. We can't go back like this. And what does the Prophet ﷺ say? He says, I don't know. He says, this is the decision of Allah and I have to obey Allah. Let that ingrain into your mind. Our Prophet ﷺ, as exalted as he was not a divine being. He was a human being. He only knew as much as Allah allowed him to know. So he did not know why Allah wanted him to sign this treaty, but he signed it because Allah said, sign this treaty. Now this treaty is signed, no umrah, no fighting for 10 years, and now hijrah is banned. So now they're going back to Medina without doing umrah, right? The Muslims, they're feeling defeated. They're feeling depressed. They feel like, what just happened? Like, we just went all the way there to do umrah. We couldn't do umrah, and now we have to abandon our brothers and sisters in Makkah. This is a complete defeat. Like, they're feeling depressed, right? It's quiet. They're walking through the desert, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down wahi to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He sends down Surah Al-Fatah. And in this surah, what is the first line? That indeed we have granted you manifest victory. Allah is telling the Prophet that this was not a defeat. This was a victory for him and his ummah. So now the Prophet, he receives this wahi, he stops the caravan, he turns around with a big smile on his face. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah has just declared that this was in fact a victory for us. It was not a defeat. And what did the Sahaba do? Do they question it? You see, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to make his own ijtihad, they would question him, they would debate with him. But when it came to times where wahi would come down, they would not question a single word of it. Now they're feeling depressed, they're feeling defeated. Now they hear that Allah and His Messenger have declared that this is in fact a victory. Their mood turns upside down. Now they're rejoicing, they're happy, they're excited, and they're doing takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. This was a victory for us. This was the iman of our Sahaba. Once again, where is our iman? Now, so what happens next? What was the second condition in the treaty? How was this a victory? There are many ways that this treaty was a victory for the Muslims. We're going to focus on one thing. What was the second condition in the treaty? How many years? No fighting for how many years? Let's see if anyone's paying attention. 10 years, right? No fighting for 10 years. So what does this do? No fighting means no battles, no war. All the trade routes have reopened. All visitation has reopened. People are now going back and forth. Because visitation has opened, what has this done? This has opened the door for da'wah. Now our Prophet ﷺ, he was the greatest da'i that Allah has ever sent down to this planet. He brought with him the greatest form of da'wah than any form of da'wah ever before, and that was the Holy Quran, the word of Allah Himself. So what happens now that the door for his da'wah is opened? People start reverting to Islam exponentially day by day by day. So whereas at Hudaibiyah, we have 1,400 Sahaba, 1,400 Muslims with the Prophet, 2 years later, at Makkah, 2 years later, you have 14,000 Muslims standing alongside the Prophet ﷺ. 14,000. 1,400 to 14,000 in just 2 years. This is the qadr of Allah. Have faith in Allah, have iman in Allah. Allah is Al-Wakil. He is the best disposer of all your affairs. No matter what kind of hardships you're going through, just have tawakkul in Allah. Because when you make Allah your priority, this is an example for us. When you make Allah your priority, everything else falls into place. Because that should be your number one priority. Allah should be your number one priority. Nothing else. So Hudaibiyah opened the door for da'wah, right? The importance of da'wah cannot be overestimated. Our Prophet ﷺ, he told us that he is the last and final messenger. And there will be no messenger after him. So the responsibility of spreading the message of Islam, the responsibility of giving da'wah falls upon whom? His ummah. He was talking about us. the responsibility of giving dawah now falls upon us. So give dawah, my brothers and sisters. The strongest form of dawah is with the Holy Quran, with the word of Allah. But you don't even have to open your mouth to give dawah. Did you know that? You don't even have to open your mouth to give dawah. You see, if you have a good character, if you have a great character, if you have an Islamic character, your character becomes your dawah. If people know that you're Muslim and you have a great character, that becomes your dawah. Okay? So what does that mean? You know, in Surah Al-Furqan, Allah describes his mu'min, his believer. He describes his servant as someone, his servant is one who walks the earth humbly. And when people speak words of harshness to him, he responds with words of peace. He is describing the characteristics of a mu'min. So this is the Islamic character. This is someone who is humble, who is righteous, who is not arrogant, who does not use curse words, who avoids profanity, who avoids gossip, who avoids slander. This is someone that other people feel safe in their presence of. This is someone with an Islamic character. And when you have an Islamic character, your character becomes your dawah. It's that easy. You know, whomsoever Allah guides cannot be misguided. Whomsoever Allah misguides cannot be guided. So imagine if Allah uses you to guide one of His creations back to Islam. Imagine if Allah uses you to guide one of His creations back to Islam. To give dawah, my brothers and sisters, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the tawfiq to walk a righteous path. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the tawfiq and the ilm to guide others to Islam. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the higher rank amongst His mu'min and His mu'minin and the muttaqeen on the day of judgment. Ameen, ameen, Allah, ameen, jazakallah khair, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.